Welcome back to WION World is One. You're watching Speed News with me, Vidur Kathuria. Let's get started. US President Donald Trump and his cabinet members have publicly rallied behind White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles after controversy erupted over remarks attributed to her in a recent Vanity Fair interview. The article claimed Wiles described the US president as having an alcoholic's personality, sparking widespread attention and criticism. In response, Wiles strongly rejected the characterization, calling the piece a disingenuously framed hit job that distorted her words and intent. She insisted that her comments were taken out of context and misrepresented to create a sensational narrative. Donald Trump signed an executive order proclamation expanding the list of countries subject to full or partial entry restrictions to cover around 40 countries effective on 1st January 2026. The newly signed proclamation adds full restrictions and entry limitations on 5 additional countries based on recent analysis: Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, South Sudan, and Syria. It also adds full restrictions and entry limitations on individuals holding Palestinian Authority-issued travel documents. The administration also imposed full restrictions and entry limitations on 2 countries that were previously subject to partial restrictions: Laos and Sierra Leone. US Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard warned the risks posed by Islamization in the wake of the Sydney terror attack. She said Europe and possibly Australia may already be too far along this path, but stressed that the United States still has the chance to prevent such outcomes. In a post on X, Gabbard described the attack on a Jewish Hanukkah celebration at Bondi Beach as the direct result of the massive influx of Islamists into Australia, adding that their ultimate aim is the Islamization of the entire world, including the US. She credited President Trump for prioritizing border security, deporting suspected terrorists, and halting unvetted mass migration, measures she said are essential to keeping Americans safe. The US House of Representatives held a moment of silence on Tuesday for the 2 National Guard members killed in an attack in Syria last Saturday. Lawmakers from the Iowa congressional delegation stood on the House floor next to large photographs of the 2 killed Guardsmen as they paid their respects on Tuesday. President Donald Trump will go to Dover Air Force Base in Delaware today for a dignified transfer to the 2 killed Guardsmen. The ritual honoring US service members killed in action is one of the most solemn duties undertaken by the Commander-in-Chief. Venezuela has formally accused the US of stealing one of its oil tankers during an anti-drug operation in the Caribbean, raising the issue before the United Nations Security Council. In a letter addressed to the Council's president, Venezuelan's UN envoy Samuel Moncada urged members to denounce what he described as an act of state-sponsored piracy and called for international condemnation of Washington's actions, which Caracas says are intended to increase pressure on the government. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov responded to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's call for a Christmas ceasefire, particularly to halt strikes on energy infrastructure. He said that the truce proposed would depend on whether a broader peace deal is reached, adding that Russia is unlikely to participate in ceasefire if Ukraine remains focused on short-term solutions. Peskov added that Russia has not seen detailed proposals from Ukraine or its allies and reiterated that Moscow's focus remains on achieving its military and political objectives. Australia held the first funeral for the victims of the Bondi Beach mass shooting on Wednesday as large crowds gathered to grieve a rabbi slain in the attack. Father of 5, Eli Schlanger, known as the Bondi Rabbi, was the first person mourned with a service at the Bondi Synagogue. About 200 people participated in a commemorative swim at Sydney's Bondi Beach on Wednesday to pay tribute to the victims of Sunday's mass shooting. The attack, which claimed 15 lives during a Hanukkah celebration, was described by Australia's Federal Police Commissioner Susie Wiles as a terrorist act inspired by Islamic State. Authorities identified the suspect as a father and son. 25 people remain hospitalized, including 10 in critical condition and 3 children. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer hosted a reception at Downing Street on Tuesday evening to mark the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah, just 2 days after a deadly mass shooting at a Hanukkah celebration in Australia. Addressing guests, Starmer condemned the attack and stressed the importance of resilience in the face of violence and extremism. He added that the Hanukkah festival, which celebrates light overcoming darkness, carries a powerful message at a time when communities are confronting threats of anti-Semitism and extremist violence. Six months after Israel carried out strikes on Iran's atomic facilities during a 12-day war, Mossad Director David Barnea has warned that the country must remain vigilant to ensure Tehran does not restart its nuclear program. Speaking at a security forum in Tel Aviv, Barnea said Iran's ambitions remain unchanged despite the damage inflicted on its infrastructure, and cautioned that the regime is actively seeking ways to rebuild its capabilities. The Mossad chief also highlighted the importance of continued cooperation with allies, noting that intelligence sharing and coordinated action are essential to counter Tehran's efforts. Palestinian news agency Wafa said Israeli settlers shot and killed a 16-year-old boy near Bethlehem in the occupied West Bank. The victim, identified as Muhib Ahmad Jibril, was killed shortly after the funeral of another teenager who died on Monday. The Israeli military said that its troops were dispatched to the area to restore order. Israeli troops or settlers have killed more than 1,000 Palestinians, including militants and civilians, in the West Bank since the start of the Gaza war. To celebrate 200 years of diplomatic relations, the United States repatriated 347 cultural assets to Peru, including ancient Cupesnic ceramics, Moche metalwork, and Incan ritual figures. During an event in Lima, Culture Minister Alfredo Luna praised the recovery, 97.7% of which resulted from voluntary returns across various U.S. cities. Peruvian authorities said the repatriation followed 4 joint verification processes carried out by cultural heritage specialists, and described it as part of continuing cooperation aimed at tackling the illicit trafficking of cultural property. Thousands of protesters gathered across Slovakia on Tuesday to voice their opposition to Prime Minister Robert Fico's government after Parliament approved a controversial plan to dismantle the country's independent whistleblower protection office. Despite domestic and international backlash, 78 lawmakers in the 150-seat parliament voted to replace the current office with a new institution that also handles crime victim advocacy. Rallies occurred in 10 cities, including Bratislava, where citizens demanded Fico's resignation, calling the move an attack against the rule of law. Fico's government claims the current system was abused for political reasons. However, the opposition plans to challenge the changes at the Constitutional Court. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva urged French President Emmanuel Macron and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni to advance the stalled EU-Mercosur trade pact. saying farm products from both regions do not directly compete. Lula expressed hope that European leaders will bring good news on the deal at the December 20th UNASUR EU summit in Foz do Iguaçu. The Delhi High Court will hear a public interest litigation relating to the Indigo flight disruptions. The PIL seeks directions to the centre and the airline to pay 4 times the full ticket price in compensation to all passengers whose tickets were cancelled during the recent crisis. Additionally, the PIL seeks judicial inquiry against Director General of Civil Aviation for alleged lapses. 3 people were killed and 1 seriously injured in a car accident in Gujarat's Amreli district in the wee hours of today. The accident occurred when reportedly the driver of the vehicle lost its control and rammed into a tree. In Tamil Nadu, devotees flocked to celebrate Tamil festival Madkali by engaging in spiritual practices at the Ramanatha Swami temple in Rameshwaram district. Madkali is a spiritually significant month in Tamil Nadu, often associated with temple visits and devotion, discipline and cultural immersion. New Delhi witnessed a slight improvement in air quality even as it remained in the very poor category around 8 a.m. local time this morning. According to data from the Central Pollution Control Board, average air quality index was recorded at 328 at 8 a.m. Dense smog and fog covered large parts of the national capital, reducing visibility and raising health concerns, as many S10 flights were cancelled from Delhi today due to low visibility. Firefox developer Mozilla has appointed insider Anthony Enzor de Meo as its new CEO, as the company adapts to shifts in the browser market driven by artificial intelligence. Enzor de Meo most recently served as general manager of Firefox and has been with the organization in various leadership roles. He succeeds interim CEO Laura Chambers, who led the company for the past 2 years. The leadership change comes at a time when AI-powered browsers such as Perplexity's Comet are emerging as competitors, putting pressure on traditional web browsers like Firefox. Adobe is upgrading its AI video generation app Firefly with a new video editor that enables precise prompt-based editing. The update allows users to modify video elements, colors, and camera angles using text prompts without recreating entire clips. Firefly also gains a timeline view, making it easier to adjust frames, audio, and other video features. Adobe is adding support for third-party image and video models, including Black Forest Labs, Flux 2, and Topaz Astra. Instagram is expanding Reels beyond mobile screens, announcing a new pilot called IG for TV that brings short videos to television screens. The feature is launching initially on Amazon Fire TV, allowing users to watch Reels directly on their TVs. The move positions Instagram to better compete with YouTube, which currently dominates the TV viewing space. IG for TV offers a personalized experience, showing Reels based on a user's viewing habits and preferred creators on the Instagram app. Elon Musk's X Corp has sued a US startup after it sought to cancel X's Twitter trademarks so it can bring Twitter back. as a new social media platform. The lawsuit, filed in Delaware federal court, says the Twitter brand is still active and accuses Operation Bluebird of trademark infringement. Virginia-based Operation Bluebird had asked the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office to cancel X's Twitter marks, claiming they were abandoned following the rebrand to X. Bluebird said it plans to launch a rival platform called Twitter.new and has applied to register its own Twitter trademark. A global hacking group has claimed of attempting to extort porn site Pornhub after claiming to have stolen 94 GB of sensitive personal information of the website's premium members. According to a report by cybersecurity news site Bleeping Computer, the stolen data includes personal information associated with premium users, such as registered email addresses and location details. The stolen dataset reportedly contains over 200 million records. The breach was traced back to a Mixpanel, a widely used web and mobile analytics firm whose services are used by thousands of companies worldwide. Pornhub confirmed that it was among the organizations impacted by the Mixpanel data breach. Asia-Pacific markets opened mixed as investors digested fresh trade data from Japan and tracked overnight losses on Wall Street. Japan's exports rose 6.1% in November, the fastest pace in 9 months and well above expectations. Japanese stocks were mostly flat, while South Korea's markets gained modestly. Australia edged lower, and Chinese markets were mixed. Oil prices rose sharply on Wednesday after US President Donald Trump ordered a full blockade of sanctioned oil tankers entering and leaving Venezuela. Crude climbed close to 1%. The move heightened geopolitical tensions and raised concerns about supply, potentially affecting up to 500,000 barrels per day. Gains came despite broader worries about weak global demand and recent optimism over Russia-Ukraine peace talks. Analysts say prices could rise further if the blockade is enforced for a prolonged period. The US dollar hovered near a 2.5-month low as mixed labor data kept investors uncertain about the Federal Reserve's next rate move. The dollar index stayed close to early October lows after job growth remained modest and unemployment ticked higher. The euro held near a 3-month high ahead of the European Central Bank's policy decision, while markets now look to upcoming US inflation data for clearer signals on whether the Fed could cut rates later this year. India's central bank governor Sanjay Malhotra said interest rates are likely to stay low for a long period. According to an interview with the Financial Times, he said RBI projections support a prolonged accommodative stance, even as recent GDP growth surprised on the upside. Malhotra noted potential trade deals could lift growth further, but warned US tariffs may slow momentum ahead. The RBI cut rates earlier this month and left the door open for more easing to support the economy. A man who used his car as a weapon to plough into more than 130 people at Liverpool Football Club's victory parade has been jailed for 21 years and 6 months. Paul Doyle was travelling into the city centre from his home to collect friends at the parade when he lost his temper and drove into the supporters. The 54-year-old had initially denied 31 offences, but last month, moments before the prosecution was due to open his trial, he changed his pleas to admit all the charges. Paris Saint-Germain and France forward Ousmane Dembélé has been named the Men's Player of the Year at the FIFA Best Awards. The 28-year-old helped PSG to 4 trophies in the 2024-25 season. Dembélé had also won the Ballon d'Or in September. Meanwhile, Aitana Bonmati claimed the women's prize for the third consecutive year after another dominant campaign with Barcelona and Spain. The 2026 IPL auction delivered a historic moment. Australian all-rounder Cameron Green became the most expensive overseas player in IPL history after he was bought by the Kolkata Knight Riders for 25.20 crore rupees, around $2.8 million. A fierce bidding war erupted between Kolkata and Chennai Super Kings for the 26-year-old, but as the price crossed the 25 crore mark, Chennai backed out, leaving Kolkata to land a marquee signing and create history at the auction. That's it on this edition of Speed News. News and updates will continue on the other side of this short break. Keep watching WION.